Welcome back to Silver Screen Shenanigans. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Hush. And to start off, our question today is, if you had to lose one of your five senses, what would it be? I'm Emma, and I believe mine would probably be taste. Because I feel like you could just eat anything without really disliking it, you know? Eat something really, really spicy, don't even taste it.
I'm Jacob. I think it depends on what situation I'm in. Like if I need him for survival, you're at a more advantage if you can see, hear, and smell things, and touching things as well. So I feel like in that case I'm gonna pick taste, but then there'd be at one point you're just munching on mush, right? So it wouldn't be enjoyable to eat anymore. So I'm on the fence, honestly.
I'm Riley, and as somebody who has lost their taste, it's not fun because somebody could put a lot of salt in your food and you wouldn't know it, and then you would die of cholesterol poisoning.
That's true. You have a good point.
Is that the correct term? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would probably lose touch because I feel like you wouldn't have pain like receptors, and it'd be more dangerous because you broke an arm, you didn't know it. That would be bad.
True.
But I feel like there's a lot of things that you would be able to do better without some pain receptors.
Hey, my name is Devin, and I would probably have to go with a loose sight. Just go full Daredevil, fight crime in the streets of New York.
I don't think if you lost sight of you'd be full Daredevil. I think there's a couple more things.
Well, I always have to get some ooze and then put that in my eyes. But
yeah, okay.
No, I would have to definitely. I think I agree with the whole losing your taste. Eventually, food would just be mush. So I would have to go with losing your sense of touch. I don't know if pain would totally go away, but I feel like if you didn't like touch, didn't like touch certain things, you didn't have to worry about it anymore. I don't know. I feel like it's more useful.
When you lose your touch, is it just like you can't feel the textures, or you can't feel on your hands, you can't feel it?
Like if I'm touching this table, I don't think I could be able to feel it.
You just can't feel.
Yeah,
what you.
I'd say so.
That'd be
All
wild.
right.
So for those of you who have not watched the movie, the reason we asked this question is because the girl in this movie is actually both deaf and mute, so she cannot talk or hear.
From bacterial meningitis.
Meningitis, yeah, when she was age 13.
And then I think they said something like they did a surgery on her and didn't go well. So now she's permanently mute.
Mm-hmm.
That is so
Yeah, it was
scary.
supposed to be temporary, I believe, and then it just...
Which, I didn't know that meningitis could make you,
I didn't either
make you
until
deaf.
this. So
Try not to get that. But yeah, the movie Hush is a horror thriller. It came out in 2016, directed by Mike Flanagan, who has a bunch of other horror. He's basically in the horror movie genre. I'm pretty sure he directed Doctor Sleep as well. And prominent actors is Kate Siegel, who plays our main character, and John Gallagher Jr., which he's not credited, but he's credited as the man who kind of stalks this girl out in the woods. And basically the plot synopsis, it's not very much. It's like we said, it's a deaf and mute writer who retreated to the woods for solitary reasons, and she basically just has to fight for her life against a mask killer.
So
is it Siegel or Seagal?
I couldn't tell you.
Seagal?
Seagal sounds right, but
Seagal
it could have
sounds
been a
right, but
different-
Siegel
could be a
could
different
also.
actress or actor.
But Mike Flanagan, he also directed The Haunting of the Hill House and I think Ouija, the Ouija board
Oh yeah.
movie.
He also
And
directed
Oculus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
So
a long time
he
ago.
hangs out in the horror genre.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked this movie.
No, it was a sleeper hit. I just randomly found it on Netflix one day just because I was bored looking for movies, and it's really exhilarating.
Yeah, it was a 2016 hit, honestly.
Right. So basically, I don't know if we just want to start out, but this woman is just cooking in her kitchen, and you can hear all the chops that she's making and all the stirring. But then it immediately cuts, and it's like what she can hear, which is obviously nothing. So you still see her chopping things and stirring things, and can't hear anything. So it's kind of like a day in her, or like a minute in her life.
Like, yeah, it cuts to like her ear and her face. So it's showing us and not telling us, and which this movie does a lot of. And I'm always a fan of movies where it shows us and not tells us, because I think a movie who does that, kind of in a way treats its audience with some respect, that they're not so dumb that they just have to tell us this is what's happening at this moment, at this time. If you can just show us, we can get there. And making that connection, I think, makes a movie more interesting, because you're more engaged trying to look for stuff.
Yeah, there were lots of like subtle camera tricks that they used or like camera and audio tricks that they used to just show that she can't hear anything that's going on, and it's very interesting on how they do that.
And the fire alarm goes off that first time, and that's how we get the sense of like that she is deaf, because her friend comes over and the fire alarm goes off, and her friend can like barely function because of how loud this fire alarm is, and she obviously can't hear it, but she says she feels the vibrations, which,
well, she doesn't say it, she signs it,
or signs it.
right.
Yeah. She says it in her own way.
Right.
But that's really common in deaf people. Like if you've seen Americans Got Talent or any of those, when they sing, they can feel the vibrations through the floor.
It's really cool. Like, just I feel like learning sign language would be such like an amazing talent to have. It's not even not a talent, but just a trait or a ability to do.
I've been wanting to do it for a while.
Yeah.
I've also seen like other safety measures for people that have lost at least the sense of hearing. I saw this one. It could have worked for doorbell, fire alarm, any kind like that. But it was this thing they stuck underneath a mattress for when they're sleeping, and this thing just shakes the bed basically. Like it's a little thing that vibrates, but this thing produces enough vibration that it literally shakes the whole bed to wake a person.
Wow.
Which makes sense, because we've always heard that once you lose one sight, once you lose one sense, the rest of them are like heightened. Which I always found kind of crazy.
Wait, so once you lose one sense, the others are likely to go, or the others are even better?
They heighten it.
Okay.
That's
Which,
why if I lost my touch, I would be able to taste food better, and I'd be able to smell food better, and I'd be able to see the food better. Just all of it's around food.
Right.
And then she's talking with her friend later about how she's asking her, like, when she thinks, like when everyone thinks, we have that voice in our head. It's usually ours. So she asked her, since, you haven't had your voice for so long, whose voice is it? And she says it's her mother's. And I was curious. I didn't, look it up or anything, but that was something I was wondering about. If deaf and mute people, do they think with somebody else's voice, or that they are familiar with, or do they make one up? Or
I was also wondering that. Like, what if they just don't have a voice in their head? They just don't have thoughts like that. I think that's just bizarre to me.
This is just a shot in the dark, but maybe they don't think with a voice. Maybe they think in signs, because that's their language.
So, like, they see emotion instead of a word.
Maybe.
I know that like dual language speakers, whenever they're like, if like somebody's from like Mexico and they speak Spanish, if they're in America and they're like speaking English among their friends, they'll think in English, versus if they go back to Mexico and they'll still think in Spanish, because that's just the language that everybody else is talking in.
Nice.
So that's just it's a really interesting like ability to do, to think in different languages.
Yeah, that is really cool.
guys seen the movie Arrival?
Yes.
Like the half semicircle thing comes from the sky, and like
The
these
aliens.
aliens look like semi trees behind the screen. They go up and talk to them.
Mm.
They're like all around the world.
Is that the one where the lady like touches the big? It's like a big white screen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
no,
saw the
never seen
trailer
it.
for that, but I never watched it.
So basically, the premise behind this movie is how people think based on what language they talk. And the whole premise is people talk or think they have different thought processes based on what language they talk about. So like different people across the planet, right? Well, these aliens are trying to teach her their language. And I don't know if I want to spoil the movie here. Is that okay or not? Maybe hold off.
Let's hold off.
But
We might do that one.
with their language, she's able to think differently. And it's like the whole premise of the movie.
So where this movie, I guess, sort of really, gets going is when she sits down and starts writing the story, and has that kind of writer's block. Then she gets a message from her friend who just left, and it's pictures of her.
Well, there's a lot more
There's a little bit
before
in
that.
between there.
So
Like,
she's cleaning up her cooking stuff.
Yeah, so
and
she
her
burnt
friend.
everything. When her fire alarm
Yes.
went off, she burnt all of dinner.
Yeah, she was distracted talking to her friends.
So her friend left, was like, "Oh, have a good time," but she was signing it obviously. And then she goes back inside and she sits down to try to write, but then her ex-boyfriend Craig texts her, right? He texts her.
Yeah, he texts her and she deletes it.
Yes. Yeah. Then she deletes it. And so after that, she then goes back into the kitchen to like start cleaning up. And as she's washing the dishes,
her back is to the window.
Yeah, her back's to the window. She's not like touching any walls, so she can't feel the vibrations. But her friend is screaming and banging on the window to have her let her in.
Like 5 feet from her.
Yeah.
Any of us would have been able to hear it or even see it, probably out of
But
the corner of our eye.
her back was turned. So as she was doing dishes, her friend was dying right next to her.
Which I guess it wasn't hard enough for her to feel it, the
Right.
banging of the glass.
Later, we find out that all the doors are just unlocked. I mean, she could have just tried the door.
See, my thing is, so the guy who comes up and stabs her friend he's basically looking at the girl cleaning the dishes
Right.
while he does it. And my thing is, if you were a serial killer, if you were a murderer, why would you just kill in front of? Because there's no way that he knows that she's deaf, right?
No, right.
Right.
He doesn't. After he kills her, he taps the glass and he's like, "She can't hear me."
Yeah, but I'm also like, he killed her right in front of her. Like,
And
why?
I
why
think
would he go
later
up there?
we find out with what he does. He doesn't care about
Anything. He's just gonna kill him
yeah.
anyway.
I don't think he cares about being clean about it.
He has 13 under his belt.
Yeah, this is definitely not a Dexter type of killer.
He's been practicing.
Well,
So
yes.
Oh, okay. So then he gets the friend's phone.
No, it's actually her own.
it's her
phone.
own phone. He
walks
gets
in.
into her house. That's how you
Oh
figure
yeah,
out the doors are unlocked.
because he just opened up the door and walked in.
Yeah.
Um.
He gets in the house, and then she gets a FaceTime call from her sister,
Right.
where during that she's distracted enough for him to steal her phone. But
The sister's like,
The sister's-
"Hey, hold up."
yeah, the sister notices that there's movement in the background.
And it's just the
And-
cat. It's
yeah.
just the cat, dude.
The main girl, she just goes, "Oh, it's probably the cat. Got out earlier."
The cat's name is great. I love the cat.
Cat's not in the house.
Cat's outside,
Cat's gone.
doing its own thing. Yeah, and then that's where she starts getting these photos of herself.
Yeah. Sent to her computer.
And it's really creepy because, like you mentioned, that last photo is her like on the chair where she's sitting at that moment, and she just put her leg down, and that's like the last picture. So, and then again, where this movie does, like, it doesn't, I get there are a few jump scares, but it also has a lot of good scares where it's kind of a slow burn. She gets up and walks to her front door.
It's wide open.
Wide open, and he's standing right there. And And
So it's
how
like a
the
race.
camera pans. It slowly, like, the door kind of obstructs your view, so you can't see him until it pans. So you're following her, like you see what she sees, which I also thought was cool. So you follow her until it goes right outside, and all you see is him, this masked killer, right outside your door, which freaky, dude, real freaky.
It's so scary. Also, to me, his mask looked like it keeps changing, like he's smiling, or
I think it's got
but
I think it's got a smirk,
and it's
smirk
so
throughout
creepy.
the. I don't know. I don't know if it changes, but it definitely has a smirk throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, but so yeah, they like race to the door, and she somehow, luckily, gets it shut and locked.
And then they race to lock all the doors.
Yeah, and the guy just starts slowly walking to every single door.
What I don't understand is she slowly walked with him. Why would you not run to go lock the rest of the doors? She's slowly walking with him.
Because maybe he'll just stop. You know, he
Yeah,
might just be like,
uh-huh.
oh,
Juke
actually,
her out, go to the other door.
actually good.
You know?
Thank you. Oh, gotcha.
And then I think he does something which unfortunately every modern day horror movie has to do. He cuts the Wi-Fi, like he cuts her power, which you have to nowadays because in horror movies it's like, why didn't he just call the cops?
So
Yeah.
he has her phone. The only way that she could call the cops is if she FaceTimed them on her computer.
Mm-hmm.
And
right as
so
she clicks that.
So as soon as she clicked like to call the cops, he cut the Wi-Fi or
Yeah.
cut the power and killed the Wi-Fi.
And then he like waves at her with like the phone in his hand, and I'm like, you're such a douche.
Yeah, this guy, he's not afraid of her. He's not afraid of anything, really. I mean, they're out in the wilderness. They're in the middle of the woods, which I don't know why, if you're deaf or mute, you would move out to the middle of the woods by yourself. But it's a very nice house.
It's her decision. I think it was something like her decision. She wanted to get away from the city. I don't know if it was
Too loud, that's what she said.
because of
Yeah,
the
her sister was like, "Why don't you come back to the city? We're all here, and you're out there by yourself." And she goes, "It's too loud there."
I don't know
Except
if that's
she's
the
deaf.
I don't know if that it was the bad breakup or that's the place where she contracted, meningitis, maybe
Could've
bad
been.
memories there or something. She wanted to leave.
So my guess is, one, the breakup. She just want to get away. But two, since she's a writer and she has that voice in her head that gives her all those multiple endings, it's super distracting. She gets like reversed her writer block where she can't block out her own voice.
So that's another thing that we learned at the beginning was that her mind works as she can see all of the alternate endings in her stories.
Yeah.
So she has 7 endings to this one book that she's trying to finish.
Yeah, she's just trying to find the right one, which that's what her friend also, why her friend came over is because she read her book and she was like, the ending, like usually I can guess it, but I couldn't. And she was like, well, I just run them all through my mind and whichever one I don't really think of, that's the one that normally people wouldn't think of. So I'm just going to end it like that.
And that was something I was wondering about this unnamed killer. Like I was thinking throughout the entire thing, does he have a motive? Does he know her? No.
No.
He has
not
no
at
idea
all.
who she is. He's just
Taking
he's
advantage.
just, pouncing through the woods looking for people to kill.
With a crossbow.
Yeah, with the cross.
With a crossbow and a knife.
But yeah, so he comes up to the window and she tries to, he goes around the back trying to look for her and she writes on the window with lipstick. She has to write backwards so he could see, but she's like, hey, I didn't see your face. You can go, won't tell anybody. He then takes off his mask, which is like
boyfriend is
crazy.
coming.
Yeah, boyfriend's coming
boyfriend's
home
coming
soon.
home. Obviously not, but does anything to scare him away, and he takes off his mask in front of her, and that's when we know like stuff's about to get real here.
He
he's-
did
he didn't
not
care.
care.
No,
And it's just a guy too. He's
Just
just
some
a
random,
he's
yeah.
just a regular guy. Which I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it because it's at the same time it's scary because it could just be anybody.
Just a
It could just be a regular stranger. But and also whenever the bad guy takes off the mask, it kind of takes away the mystique of like what the person is. But I kind of get
Right.
what they're trying to do here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have preferred the mask to stay on. I sat there. Actually, was like, I was sitting there like debating in my head if I would have preferred him to keep it on or keep it off. But like at the moment when I was watching the movie, I was kind of upset that he did take off the mask. Honestly,
I mean, by doing that, he trapped her.
Yeah.
She now has seen
Yeah.
his face, so she has to die now.
Mm-hmm.
And he can use that as like this is why I'm doing this now because
Right.
of this.
And it's always good when the protagonist is really smart, though. She does a lot of
She
is.
she does a lot of smart things, but at the same time, obviously because she's scared, it's understandable. She does also some
dumb things.
not so dumb. Yeah,
I mean, first of all, she keeps her house unlocked,
yeah.
All of the doors.
and so that's just a big deal.
Well, then she tries to go outside at one point as he's walking around the house.
Yeah, she can't hear how much noise she's making.
And there's
One
leaves
stick
everywhere.
and
There's
she's
leaves
dead.
everywhere.
That was
Um,
not smart.
And also, our killer is not that smart either,
No,
because she
it's really
keeps
not.
doing distractions outside, and he's like, "Oh, what's that over there?"
Yeah.
She sets off the car alarm at one point, and he goes, "Oh, okay, the car's going off.
Right.
Who did that?
I'm gonna go over here, and then I'm gonna bust the." That's another thing. He doesn't break in.
No.
He could
yeah.
bust any window in that he
Easily
would
could.
like, and he does not.
He busts the car. He slashes
Yeah.
the tires, busts
He
those windows.
absolutely punches the car window in.
Then he slices two
Two.
tires on the left side, so she can't get away now.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I feel like you could probably still try, but tires are gone, windows gone. If he catches up,
he could
you're
get to
dead.
her pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then, as she's trying to distract him with the flashlight, she gets shot with the crossbow, and it's in a place where, like, she, like to mend the wound, she like rolls her pant down a little, or her jeans down a little bit, and she's losing like a lot of blood.
Yeah.
So
So-
now it's a very desperate situation where she physically can't run away because she'll be
she's
caught.
She's now too slow to run.
Right. But that was a very, very good tactic by throwing the flashlight into the woods.
I mean, the killer's an idiot.
Yeah.
But it kind
He
of looked
goes,
like
"Oh,
somebody was
look,
walking.
There's a flashlight out there just standing still. I wonder what that light must be.
She could have dropped it as she's running, kind of thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess.
I feel like that was a good tactic to do.
I got
And-
one very important thing I want to talk about. Maybe I'll let you go first because this might pertain to this. But
I was just going to talk about she is also smart because, like a lot of girls in horror movies, like they do them dirty. Like a lot, they treat girls in horror movies a lot of times as these like
Wimpy little.
running
easy
away.
targets.
I'm running away. I'm scared.
Mhm.
Help me, dude. She grabs a hammer. She grabs a knife. She's like, I'm ready to go, dude. Let's go.
Yeah.
And she, as he's like getting into the window, he grabs the window. She slams it down on his hands, which I was like, ah. And then when he lifts it up, she turns the hammer around and she hits him with the backside of the hammer, and it stabs right in like his wrist or like his forearm. And I'm
But
like,
then she gave him a hammer.
and she gave him a hammer.
But
Because when
Which
he
he
pulled
did
his
not
arm
use.
back, it was stuck in his arm. So then he pulled it out, and he has a hammer now.
Right.
So he could get into windows easier.
he now has 3 weapons.
And then I don't want to make it sound like she made a dumb decision. She was outside of the window because that's where her friend's body was
Yeah,
with
she
her
got-
phone.
She got overextended, though.
Yeah,
She, got past her hips, so it was harder for her to get
to
back inside.
But up until that point, up until she was in her bedroom, she didn't know that her friend had died at all. And
Right.
He was
Right.
tapping on the
Oh,
window
yeah.
with
which that
her
was
hand.
That's ooh.
The killer picked up her best friend and was, using her best friend's hand to knock on the glass window to
and then
get
he
her attention.
and then he just kind of leaves her body there.
And then he waves it. He waves her hand at her like, "Hello, how's it going?"
Then throws her body over the.
And then and then she goes for the phone. She doesn't get it,
'Cause
unfortunately.
it's gone. 'Cause the
Um,
killer was smart and took it from her.
so the killer has her phone. She's now shot in the leg and bleeding. So it's not very good at the moment for her.
okay, my very important topic was when she went out the top stairs window, right?
Yes.
And she got shot when she was on the roof. That's where she got shot. Can we talk about how strong those gutters
The
were?
gutters.
oh, and they're so sound. There was no noise.
The doors.
the
when she
killer-
opens up the doors,
Not a
the doors
creak.
don't make a noise at all.
WD-40s the
Everything.
hell out of everything.
Everything.
Yeah,
there was
not a
not
creak.
a single creak.
Not even in the floor, I don't think.
No.
Uh-uh.
There was no creaks in the
It was
floor.
a hardwood floor.
Very
No
well
creaks.
built house.
It was very new. It had to have been.
Yeah.
The only, like, not even on the deck. The deck wasn't even creaking.
Right.
There was thuds.
It
though,
was
from
it
his
was
boot.
thuds from his boots, but there was no creaks. Like, so she got out outside when the car alarm went off, right? And she got underneath the deck.
Well, no, when the car alarm went off, that's when she went to go get the phone from her friend. But then when she threw the flashlight, she went under, I think.
She was on the roof when she threw the flashlight.
Oh, that's
And then
right.
she got shot.
So what? So she made a distraction, or maybe he was just on the other side of the house, and she went under the deck.
Yeah, I think
I
that
think
was it.
I think he was just walking around.
Yeah, he just kept circling her like a shark. He just kept circling her like
Because
a predator.
he says something like, "I can get in there anytime I want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna mess with you first. I'm gonna enjoy this."
He's-
But
He
he
said,
says-
when you want to die,
Yeah.
that's when I'll enter.
Mm-hmm. When you want to die, which it's like, dude, I don't want to die.
and
Seriously.
the movie puts us in her shoes, like her thought process. And like the camera kind of it'll go quiet in some parts to put her in her shoes, like see what she's going through, and it also takes us through her thought process. But first, not her boyfriend, her best friend's boyfriend
Yeah, her best friend's boyfriend
shows up, and he's
So
like,
she doesn't
"What
have a
the
boyfriend. Let's just talk about that. She doesn't have a boyfriend.
Anymore.
He knows this because he was in there when she got the FaceTime call from her sister saying, "You need to get out there and date again. You need
Right.
to come back. There's nobody there with you." So he knows that she's by herself. Nobody's coming. And then the Sarah, her
Sarah's-
best friend's
yeah.
boyfriend, John. No, is it John? I think it's John.
I think it's John.
Yeah, her best friend's boyfriend's name is John.
Okay. John comes and he's like, "Hey, I
Dude
was
is-
looking for Sarah. Have you
Dude
seen-"
is jacked. He's a big man.
Huge. He's a huge guy. He's looking for her. Didn't see her at his house because she's dead.
Then the killer was like,
The killer has a flashlight.
so he's like, "I'm
So
a cop.
He's pretending to use the flashlight like a cop, like holding it so the guy can't really see his full body. And he's like, "Can I see your ID? And let me see your ID. And I'm looking blah blah blah." And he's making up this whole story, like, "Oh, this guy, he trucked me down. He knocked me out. Glad you came because I woke up." Like,
Mhm. Yeah, he was like, I'm a brand new deputy. Like,
Yeah, he's
my
like,
team's
"Where's-"
supposed to be here. Not in
like,
uniform.
"Where's your uniform?" And he's like, "Oh, first day on the job."
Let's just talk about the giant tattoo on his neck. I don't think the police force would allow you just to show that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I've seen police officers with tattoos, but I guess I don't know on your neck.
Like, not a giant. Was it a dragon? Snake?
I
Was
don't
it a
know
snake
what
or
it was.
dragon?
I'm not sure what it was. It was a huge tattoo on his neck.
Yeah.
But
and then killer drops an earring,
yes, the killer
Mhm.
drops this guy's girlfriend's
and
earring.
he doesn't know he did it either. And so John's looking down at it like,
Well,
why
because
does-
he
why
asks.
why does he have an earring?
Yeah, well, he was like, "Hey, can I borrow your phone to call my?"
Yeah.
rest of my
so
clan.
the killer asks to borrow John's phone, and then
I mean, he
John's like, "Oh yeah, this guy. I mean, obviously
Pretty
he
convinced-
could be bad, but probably not."
he
So
pretty convincingly does a phone call for like,
yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. Yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah,
John checks his phone call history one time and it's over. But
Right.
yeah. Then, so he drops the earring, and then he's asking him, like, who made the call, and he goes, "Well, I guess she must have." And then John goes, "Well, that's impossible because she's deaf and mute." And he's like, "Oh, huh, well."
Maybe your girlfriend did then. He was like, "Okay."
And then so John, like, I don't know if he's lying or he's probably lying about
he's-
this
he's
key that's
definitely lying. So he goes, "Oh, there's a key. She keeps a hidden key down in that pot down there," and so the killer gets off of the steps. It goes down the steps, and John picks up a rock behind his back.
and just a couple more seconds. This would have been over. The
John
happy
He
ending.
was so close. He was so close.
He should have just done it right away. He should have just done it right away.
And-
Right when
I
he
think
went
he
down
wanted
there.
to get 2 hits in before the guy turned around.
And then
So if he was like bending down doing something, he could then bash him twice before he could get back up and like try to
Yeah.
stop him.
then she pounds on the window and
Yeah.
asking for help. And then so John, of course, looks up
Because
to
he
the
can
window.
hear and hears the banging. And gets
Then the killer stabs him in the neck.
Oh, that's an awful way to go.
Yeah, and
He was so close to winning too.
And dude, John would have messed this guy up easy. Even the killer says like, I would not have won that fight.
He thanks her,
and he's like bleeding out on the ground, and he's like, "It's okay, it's over." Killer's like, "It's over, it's over." John gets up, dude, and he like grabs him and he puts him in like a what was it, like a rear naked choke?
He tackles him and then chokes him out.
He almost gets him.
As he's bleeding out through the neck.
Couple more seconds, this killer would have been done, dude. But he's bleeding from the neck. He eventually passes out and dies.
John's telling what's her name?
We should know her name.
I feel like it's not. I feel like I just made that up.
Maddie is the main girl's name.
Yeah, Maddie.
Okay, thank you. Maddie.
No, Maddie is the yeah, Maddie's the main girl, but Sarah is her friend, I think.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
So John tells Maddie to run.
Right.
As he's like about to die, he's telling her to run.
And she obviously can't.
And then she gets to the back door and thinks about it. She goes,
Yes, there's the where she gets to the back door, she runs out, and killer gets to her, bashes her brains in with a brick. And we watched this and we're like, what? She's what? But it's her thought process of
she thinks everything through.
She can't run because she'll get tracked down. She can't go underneath the house again because one, the killer knows she's there, and there's also not.
She has already done that.
And the killer sees her. She can't get away because there's no movability. She can't sit in the tub because she'll bleed out.
Well, she can't go upstairs because she'll hide and bleed out. So she can't hide. She can't run. She can't get away.
There's only one thing she can do.
She has to fight him.
Mm-hmm. Has to kill him. One shot has to kill him. And I can't remember. Oh,
she has
the killer is
at this point.
And then she. Oh, right.
She
when she smacked him with the hammer or something.
No, it was when they're on the roof.
Yeah, she was on the roof and she grabbed the crossbow out of his hand.
She can't fire it.
She
at least at first she can't fire
it back.
She's not strong enough at this point.
Well, the weight of it,
and also it's hard.
Yeah, very, very.
She's bleeding through her legs, so she can't really use her legs to pull it.
And does this? I think the next struggle is what happens to her hand.
Yes, because at that moment, she's trying. I don't know if
she shot him
something.
in the chest.
Wait. He's taking take a little smoke break, and then the kitty comes back, and we're like, oh no, he's gonna murder the kitty.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he was about to string this cat up.
She almost gets a headshot, dude. It's so close.
She can't aim. She's not good at it.
Yeah, and that's what she says while she's going through the ending. She says, if I shoot him, it has to be head or heart. Can't shoot anywhere else because he'll live.
So here's the thing. She shot him in
the shoulder.
Well, she aimed for his heart. It was the same side. She just missed a little bit.
Yeah.
Missed a little bit. And then she can't move as fast, so he kind of beats her before she closes the door.
Yeah.
Traps her hand in the door and then stomps the crap out of her hand.
She beat him inside.
Right.
She has a crossbow, and she dropped the arrow outside.
The door is cracked.
No, what happened was she dropped the arrow outside, so she was reaching out to grab the arrow.
Slams the door.
And he slams the door on her hand and then smashes her hand with his foot.
In the most gruesome way.
They show it, too.
Yes.
Well, no, first you hear it before, like you don't really see it.
I was hoping they'd stop.
You hear it a lot more before you see it, which is like, that's a good thing in movies. Also, when it's all about what you don't see as opposed to what you
imagine.
You imagine her hand just getting just destroyed, and then you see it, and her fingers are like all bent the wrong way, and it's like and then he's like, I'm coming in now. Because she's like on the ground, like crying, and because she's broken, she's bleeding, she's had the worst night of her life. She saw 2 of her friends murdered. And then she dips her finger into the blood.
So on her leg wound, she is now tied it off so that it's not bleeding out too bad. She dips her finger into the wound to get blood, and then writes on the door when he's like, "I'm going to come in now." She writes on the door, "Do it." And then he's like, "Okay, I will." And then she writes, coward.
Because he still just stands there. He's like, okay, I will. And he just stands there. So she's like, you're a coward.
And then I'd say this is the climax. This is like the final kind of fight scene, I guess. He grabs the tire iron, I think it is.
Yeah.
And he just starts going ham on this window. And these windows do not break.
Yeah, this is like a sliding door.
This window is very good because he hit it at least 6 times.
Oh, yeah, each.
Each time it just spider webbed and nothing broke.
And then as he's doing this, she runs to her laptop. And this scene, this part got me a little bit because she writes down the description of him, like tattoo, white male,
5'9",
approximate height, short hair,
Green eyes.
And she is like, "Love you, mom and dad. I died fighting." And I'm like, "Oh my god."
At that
She
point,
was ready to die.
Yeah,
and
at that point, she's accepting. I don't know if she's ready to die, but she's accepting her death. Yeah.
Right.
Which is actually really sad because at that point, you all think,
Oh, she's dead.
She's going to die.
And also, it's like, in that moment, it's super brave, too, because in that moment, I don't think many people would be that strong to, like, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to go down fighting. I feel like a lot of people would just kind of cower and
just accept that they can't.
Definitely. Yeah.
So she goes into her bathroom, and as we knew in the beginning, there's a window in every single room in the house.
Even upstairs. Like, there's no, like, if there was a tornado, there's no
no safe place for her to go.
So she's positioned, she's facing the door to the bathroom. I think is she in the bathtub or in front of the bathtub?
She's in front of the bathtub holding a knife. And
complete silence, which is great.
We're in her mind. Complete silence.
You see this
glittering
stuff from the back.
It's beautiful. It really is. It's like beautiful glitter falling behind her. I was like,
it's glass.
Oh. Well, yes, it's glass. But I was like, oh, so it must be like the shower curtain or something showing light. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. And then you see a body fall, which is him getting behind her in the bathtub.
Stealthy, bro. He didn't make a noise. He didn't make a noise. Didn't make a vibration or nothing. Getting in the bathtub.
And he knows that she can't hear him or doesn't know that he's there.
Which I can't remember what he says. I think he's just kind of gloating.
He's like, oh, what? He's like, it's over now. I have you. Mm-hmm. And then he
scoffs. Yeah.
He says, I bet I can hit you in the right spot to where you can scream.
Oh, so he said, I bet you're holding out on me.
And then he does a little, like a scoff, and he pulls his knife back. She feels the breath.
The wind hit the back of her neck.
And as he goes to stab, she spins around, misses her neck, and she stabs him in the leg. And I was like, yo.
It was a good fight.
I have a little bit of critique.
Scene.
Later on, remember, like, very, very beginning, the reason why the door was open, they let the cat in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She went burr as she opened the door because of the cold air outside, and then went and got a jacket, correct?
Mm-hmm.
She took off the jacket to put the tourniquet on her leg.
Right.
So she's currently just beaten up, bloodied, with no coat on, right? In the bathroom where all the windows are shut.
She's also, like, bleeding out profusely.
But wouldn't she would have felt the cold air come through that window as he broke that thing?
I feel like she's just so used to it. She's probably sweaty from trying to fight. She's probably...
I mean, her entire house has to be that cold, I'd imagine, by now. Because she has no heat.
Just
and who
so
knows,
much has happened.
And who knows what adrenaline is doing to her body.
Yeah.
She's so lucky she felt the
and
wind.
then she scurries out of the bathroom, goes into the kitchen, and he walks out. He calls her.
She stabs him in the knee.
Yeah.
So now he's limping. She's limping. They're both very slow now.
Calls her a mean word. Starts with a C. I won't say it. But he leans down to try to finish her off again. She grabs like wasp repellent. Yes. Sprays him right in the face.
Yeah, she's like sitting there almost dead. And he comes out and he's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then she sprays him in the eyes with wasp repellent.
So now he's blind, sort of.
He can't see very well. And then she sets off the fire alarm.
Yes.
And now he can't hear or see.
Yeah, because flashes.
It's flashing. Lights. He's also blinded with the wasp repellent. So she has one sense over him because she can't hear the blaring noise of this fire alarm.
So she's very defiant though. But that's also what I like about this main character. She's very defiant. She keeps putting up the fight. And unfortunately, he kind of gets the upper hand though. Again, he like pushes her to the ground or something.
Yeah, he's stronger than her. So
And
he gets her onto the ground.
He starts
and he's
choking her
out. But as they were scuffling with they both had knives. They were scuffling. She knocks
a corkscrew,
a wine corkscrew, onto the floor. So as he's choking her out, she's like,
and then
passing out.
Her life literally flashes before her eyes, like her memories of like her growing up and with her mom and yada yada, which I don't ever want to be in that situation, but that's what people say is your life flashes before your eyes.
Yeah, like the last 7 seconds of your life or so, you just relive. You kind of relive those moments.
Which is kind of wild, like thinking about that. Why does your brain choose to show you that?
I don't know. I didn't fact check this, but in Interstellar, they say it's kind of like a fighting mechanism to give your body a little bit more hope to like preserve your life.
Yeah, that
and it works.
Sense. It gives her life.
It works.
It definitely does, yeah.
She grabs the corkscrew and stabs it through this guy's throat.
Through. Like, when we say through.
All the way.
It was long enough to get in one side and out the other. Mm-hmm. So now he can't scream. So that was a really cool, like, role reversal there. He was struggling to, like, say anything.
Because his vocal cords are screwed.
Oh, got him. But he falls off of her, bleeding out, and then she like finally can like breathe again. And who calls the cops?
She does.
She does.
Okay.
She just calls it.
She gets her phone back from the dude.
All right. Yeah. So then she calls the cops.
Obviously, doesn't say anything
because she's mute.
Can't hear.
But they do hear the fire. They hear the fire alarm in the background.
The fire alarm is going off this entire time.
So the cops are like, hey, we probably should go check this out.
Yeah. So
then you see the red and blues.
Yeah, she manages not to fall asleep and die, which is.
And then the kitty shows back up, and the kitty's sitting next to her, and while the cops are showing up, and that's how it ends.
She ends with a smile. On her face.
Happy ending, baby.
Yeah, she had a smile.
Well, I mean, not happy, not totally happy because her friends are dead, but hey,
Yeah, true. She did have a smile on her face at the end.
I just want to point out it kind of resembled like the shape of the smile on the mask. Ooh. I just want to point that
That's what I was thinking. Does her face to anybody else resemble the mask? Does her face at all?
No, not to me. I think it's just a
I
random
thought the
mask.
smile did.
The smile at the end, I think definitely does. Yeah, she was very just happy to be alive at the end.
Yeah,
which I would.
We were all too, because honestly, I was rooting for her, because the serial killer wins every time in most of the movies. Most of the movies.
I mean, sometimes.
Well, and he killed her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend.
I wouldn't say best friend. She was a neighbor who was learning sign language to communicate better.
Okay, well, but her friend.
Yeah. So, Devin, what do you think? What would you rate this movie, and why would you rate it that?
Well, it's kind of tough because you had no expectation for it. So, in most of other movies, you're kind of having this expectation because you've seen the trailer and you're like, oh, I think this is... So you already have what you think it's going to be like. With this movie, when I first watched it, I had no idea. I've never heard anything about it before. So obviously expectations were super low. And, it surprised the hell out of me. Like, it was a great movie with not a whole lot going on, which is... I always find great because it's a simple story can often be the most impactful. And I think this one kind of, nailed it with the kind of simple story. A lot of great scares, and it didn't rely heavily on jump scares, which is I appreciate because most horror movies do a lot of jump scares, which is annoying. And it's also very real. Like, it's this idea of, and it's also nothing new, but it's old tricks being used in a great way.
I mean, she's isolated out there.
She's alone, and a guy breaks into her house and tries to kill her. Like, that's a very real-world, scary thing that happens. So as far as horror movies go, I'd say this is it's really good. I would give it probably a 7.
It's a good score.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. For like Devin said, it's pretty simple. I mean, basically the entirety of the movie is she's in her house and he's outside just trying to get to her. That's basically the entire movie. But yeah, what I really liked about this is most horror movie cliches. They're in every horror movie. I mean, the girl is running and screaming, obviously dies, or just obviously predictable things. And a lot of this time in this movie, I didn't predict. You know, I did not think she was going to live in the end for sure. And when it pans out, I mean, we didn't really talk about this, but as she's going through the endings in her mind, she's imagining it and we see it on screen. So if she were to run, we then see her getting her head bashed in with a cement block. Well, then if she were to wait, she bleeds out. And if, you know, but I really like this movie and I think I'm going to rate it an 8 or an 8.5, around there.
I want to go back to that cinder block scene you talked about. Riley got me good. So we obviously all watched this together in the same room.
I'd seen it before. We had watched it all together.
This man psyched at least me and Emma out because we haven't for sure seen this movie. And we legitimately thought that was the end of the movie. Like, it cut off, it's slow.
She gets her head bashed in, and then I go, well, what do you guys think about it?
If the movie would have ended at that point,
I would have been mad.
Yeah, I would have been mad. I wouldn't have liked it as much. Definitely.
I thought it was funny.
So for my rating, man, I believe it was a good movie, but I'm not exactly too fond of it. Like, I don't think it'd be bad. I definitely watch it again, but on like my movie scale,
Yeah, it's like nothing mind blowing.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's
nothing
nothing.
No, yeah.
It's nothing like great.
I was gonna say 6, but I'll give it a benefit of the doubt. Let's go with like 7.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I mean, it's all right. So I thought that the movie, just because I had seen this one a long time ago when I was first starting to watch horror movies, I thought it was very good. Lots of just stuff that you wouldn't have thought of. Like, oh, so clearly she's thinking this through, which nobody would have thought that the first time you see it. You're like, oh, she's dead. This is the end of the movie.
Right.
But just to have that aspect of it is just crazy. Also, like her writing on the glass with lipstick, like, didn't see face, don't know who you are, please leave, or like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. If it would have worked, she would have lived.
Yeah.
If it didn't, she would have died immediately. Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it, and I really enjoy it every time I watch it now. So, also, it starts and it goes, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Which is very nice, because I don't like movies that make you, like, wait the entire movie, and then it's like, oh, now it's scary, congrats.
Halloween.
You got there. You got to the scary part.
Wasn't like 15 minutes in the movie.
Yes, it's 15 minutes in. After she talks to her friend, bam, it's all of it's now scary.
Yeah.
It's this situation that could be real. She's living it out. And I just think that is such a cool premise and such a really good idea. But
And it doesn't fall into the trap of being too monotonous. Like it
Right.
could have overstayed its welcome. Like we could have been in this situation for too long, and it could have eventually gotten boring. It's like,
could have been like,
okay,
come on, just die.
who's gonna
get
die?
killed.
Can we get this? But no, I think the movie's the correct like length. Like it's, I think it's only.
I think it's like an hour and 30.
Yeah, hour and 30 minutes, which I'm glad it's not 2 hours like most movies are today. Yeah, a 2-hour movie with this premise would have overstayed
Would
its
have been a little
welcome,
too long.
but it knows when to end, which is good.
Although I do if it were, so it ends at about hour and a half. If we had an extra half an hour, I would have liked to see her talking to the police going through it, the afterwards, or like a few months later or something. You know, her neighbor's gone.
How
neighbor's
her
boyfriend's
PTSD from all this
Yeah, like
is
how is
affecting
she?
her.
Yeah, how is she affected from it?
Did she ever finish her book?
Right, stuff like that.
Yeah, so all of that, just, it was such a good movie when I first watched it, and it's still such a good movie. I give it like a 7.5, because it's a really cool premise, and it's stuff that before this I don't think I'd ever seen. Like somebody who is deaf or blind. Like now there's a quiet place where the entire movie is silent, except for a few key moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's Don't Breathe, which is the blind guy who like attacks people who enter his house. And
Yeah, a lot of quiet movies going on.
Well, yeah, he can hear them breathe, and he can like attack them from there. And then, I mean, there's just all these movies now that are off of this horror factor of losing a sense and not being able to stop people now.
Which they use it in all these movies we talked about. They use silence to great effect, which I hope is more of a trend within horror movies, because I think silence is often way more terrifying than a loud jump scare or loud music. Which, I mean, some music can be like with Halloween, with that kind of guitar riff when you see Michael show up. That's some cool stuff, but sometimes silence is better than something.
Or like the eerie noise of a violin bow on a metal stand.
Yeah.
Well, if you have any suggestions for other movies, any comments or concerns, you can go ahead and email us at silverscreenpod@gmail.com. Again, that's any questions, concerns, movie suggestions, anything that comes to your mind. We'd love to hear your thoughts.